I mean, fair enough, actually, yeah. Or just nobody watches it like the other fucking single-player stuff I've been working on. I'm not gonna stop that, by the way. Just fair warning to everybody. I know nobody cares about the single-player stuff I post on YouTube. It's not gonna stop. I literally promised my first viewer that I would make a Hogwarts Legacy playthrough just to make me consistently put things up on YouTube. I didn't finish it yet, and I definitely made a promise, so...
Hey guys, it's Merrick, and I've got another gameplay commentary for you today. In this one, I'm playing Planetside 2 on VS with the Betelgeuse. I'm running short barrel to help out with the CQC on it, and high velocity because I put that shit on everything. I'm also running munitions suit and survivalist, which are relatively standard for me. Starting the session off at Ixatab, I kind of run out of spawn looking for people under this bastion. I actually don't see as many people as I would like. I get a flank on one of them and I'm able to clean him up, and after rotating around a little bit, have some drop pods fall on me, and I managed to trade out pretty well, all things considered. But as I come back out of spawn, it seems like some of them are already in the building. I'm able to catch one on top of the stairs thanks to seeing him on the minimap. An infiltrator tries to come out of nowhere, but doesn't seem to manage his shots. I'm able to turn on him, and then as I continue to clear the area out, there's not a whole lot of people until I get all the way down towards the end, where they're trying to set up a sunder. I'm able to jump over the ledge, get a big flank on a few of them, catch another one off my minimap to keep myself from dying, and then as I look around for more of them, I don't see a whole lot, and I have to head elsewhere. That elsewhere turns out to just be outside, where I try to fight with the Sunderer because there's absolutely no fight happening, and well, it doesn't necessarily pan out. From there, I head over to Eastern Substation, where I again chase this bastion, expecting to have more population than is actually in the Hex. So once I get here, I run around for a few minutes and am thoroughly disappointed that there's only a few guys on the roof. After getting desperate and going outside to harass them, I finally managed to pick one up, and then I'm yet again heading off somewhere else. I head over to the Ziggurat, and yet again am running around on point, looking for people when there's nobody there. And at this point, I was actually getting kind of frustrated and ready to redeploy yet again as TR finally showed up and started breaching the point. I was caught out of position and died promptly. On my way back, I'm able to pick up one for free because I see him on the minimap, and I set up in this building intending to try to pick them off the side, but I get overzealous, step out of cover into the open, don't rotate back immediately upon seeing the threat, and die from the roof. As I run back yet again, I try to push up the back staircase, but there's a whole lot of TR here. They're spreading out and covering all the points, so getting to point isn't going to be so free, and I wind up in a handful of engagements as I continually try to breach in and find some kind of footing. There's not a whole lot of ways to cheat or finesse your way onto point or into a better position closer to point with this kind of a difference in population. You just gotta kind of find an angle and bleed them out and hopefully be able to actually make a difference that way, or just get population. In this case, we could kind of do neither, so I eventually repositioned to a completely different base. I get over to East Aiken and I completely underestimate what I'm dealing with. I attach myself to the server and swing close to try to get the jump on somebody, and I do successfully catch one off guard, but he's got both a friend and a handful of maxes with him. I run back out and I try to see if I can't pick somebody off. I do manage to get one that's going by the door, but then the guy I killed earlier hits me with a super clean peek and I just fall over. There's too much population difference for me to do much, so I have to head somewhere else. I make my way over to Genesis Terraforming, I pick off somebody I saw on the map, and as I try to negotiate with this Sunderer to make it through the door, it rejects my advances, and as I'm heading around the outside, I am completely outskilled by an infiltrator. I pull out the Commissioner on my respawn, and I look for this infiltrator. I don't look at my minimap, so I'm completely surprised when I walk out into the open, and there's a bunch of angry people in that open. Shocking. I back up and I take a fight on somebody along the outside of the silo, and I'm in a terrible position because somebody could swing close on me, and while he kills me kind of around the corner, I was at risk dying to somebody swinging close anyway, and I was completely out of position to deal with it. Getting back up out of spawn, I take the long path around the outside this time, and I come in the side door. I manage to pick up a medic right as I walk in the door, and I see a guy down the straight of the L shape. I engage him when he's actually far too close to the corner, but I am able to push forward and get the cleanup. However, because I had to make a positional mistake to actually be in position to kill that guy, I am immediately murdered by the guys coming in behind me. I spawn and try to push in yet again, and there's just too many people on top of the Sunderer, and I and it die instantly. I respawn at a second Sunderer and push into point C. As soon as I get in there, though, it seems like there's already people there. I try to engage someone on the corner, and someone swings close on me. Thankfully, they mess up a little bit, and I'm able to return the trade. I should have died there for free pretty much, and I just got lucky. I make it over to Moss Ridge Command Center, though, and after taking a little bit of a ride to get up to point, it's very packed with people, and I'm having a whole lot of trouble getting an angle that doesn't involve fighting multiple people at once, which is not really a fight I can win. I back up to try to get somebody to push out of the building after me. They don't take the bait, and I am harassed by an angry galaxy very far off. I push up to the middle door as one of the only places I could probably get a tight angle. I do find said tight angle, and I am able to get one kill there, but I have to back off, only to be harassed by this annoying-ass galaxy yet again. This seems to be an organized point hold, and I know for a fact that guy would have gotten picked up, so I re-engage on that corner. I'm a little too far out, I commit too hard to it and don't rotate off, and I lose the fight. I come back and try the same thing with a little bit more tact this time. I don't manage to pick him up as somebody else from the side takes the kill, but this is kind of a good instance to highlight how when I'm taking these engagements at this point, I don't know what the hell's wrong with me, but I'm really not rotating off or trying to back up as soon as I take damage. I'm just trying to take a toe-to-toe fight and be stubborn about it, and at this moment in time, I'm really not winning those fights. It would be very, very beneficial for me to instead play properly, and when I do take damage, if I'm not immediately sure that I'm going to win the fight, to rotate off, save myself, and re-engage. Despite there being a fair amount of VS gen pop here, we were not actually able to do anything to stop the point, and we only got any level of footing as they were rotating off as the point ended. We managed to get on a point, get a few trades, but we don't get anything as they continue to hold the point, so I respawn at a Sunder at the end, and as I try to push up, it seems like a lot of the NC population has rotated off, but there is still a fair amount there. There is, however, a lot of NC air flying around, so I take a few moments to try to do what I can about that, but I can't actually manage to make anything happen, so we wind up heading off to Ixotab. As I'm pushing into the compound, I actually see someone on the minimap, and I'm able to spin and get the kill on him, but it turns out I have been baited once again. I go to redeploy, and only then do I see anybody to kill. I pick up one guy in a medium distance fight on the rocks, and then as I rotate around to kill this beacon, I actually see someone else out by the tree. I pick that guy up, rotate around a little more, expecting a push to materialize. It never does, so I wind up heading back off to a construction site. I wind up running into Grill and a few other cool nerds, and we wind up pushing back towards the A point, right as a bunch of them are running out. I'm in the right place at the right time to take out those guys, and then I push up to try to get a gauge of how many people are actually inside and deny the reses. We don't have a whole lot of minimap scouting, which I use for a lot of my judgment calls, so I don't know how many of them are in there, but I also don't want to peek widely in and just die for free. I stay close to the corner, that way I'm exposed to the minimum amount of angles, and I can get back to cover quickly, and I'm able to catch one person swinging close as I get a scout. There are a handful of them on the far end. I'm able to deny a res, and they're so frustrated they just have to hit me with an entire whole-ass Valkyrie to get rid of me. I accept a terrible res because I'm not thinking, and then I try to go find somewhere else to fight. But after being unable to find a fight, I actually see a bunch of Sunderers rolling up. I give it a few minutes, and then I respawn back here, and we begin the push yet again. The hold doesn't seem as organized as it was before. I also see a lot of blue that are off point, so I take that opportunity to get a good flank on them, and also deny their ability to get back and reinforce the point. As the push hits and the breach begins, it is obvious that this is not as organized a point hold, as we all get onto point and slowly clear it out. Even though it is obviously not as organized of a defense, and the breach is already hitting, I make a bad decision and stand in the middle of the open and almost die for it, but am able to avoid death narrowly and move around to the better position where I'm able to bleed these guys out as they're coming in. And even though I am not partaking in an organized operation, there is a lack of other fights on the map, so I wind up holding here and helping defend the point. Because this is not an organized point hold and is actually just a random point hold, it is very important to keep your eye on the minimap and your head on a swivel. There's not going to be anybody to call anything out for you, and a breach on any door could happen at any moment. As such, I wind up rotating around between multiple doors, both to make sure I have a good idea of what's going on, and to give myself the best opportunity of getting kills as blue are rolling up and trying to peek those angles. I don't have the decimator, but I do get my rocket ready because I see a max on the minimap, but a light assault decides to run in instead, and with no choice but to either die or hit him with a rocket, I hit him with a rocket. I'm able to pick up one more kill, and then I wind up actually just rotating around, getting some chip damage and assists, but nothing significant or any kills, and then I wind up heading back off to the ziggurat. Join combat puts me next to the Sunderer, so I wind up running up the point, and it seems pretty quiet, all up until I actually make it to point itself. I get tagged from a long angle from spawn, and I make the absolutely horrendous decision to try to turn and fight that, standing in the open and just dying for free. However, one of the squad was able to get a magical beacon up, and I dropped directly onto point, managed to get an alright trade before getting taken out by a light assault on the roof. As I run back, VS has a very solid position on the stairs, but I run up to the building, get a little bit of an off angle, and try to crowbar my way into the point. I'm basically trying to murder anybody I see on these angles as they're being harassed from everybody who's flanking. I do manage to get a pretty solid connection before I have to back off, and even though I make the mistake of re-peeking without shields, it is alright in this single situation because the point is actually already clear. TR only does a little bit of pressure in return as it seems like they have headed elsewhere, so I do a little bit of running around and cleaning up the outskirts of the point before heading off somewhere else. I find myself at Eastern Substation, and as I'm running up to the point, I see someone in the left corner, and I try to creep up and catch him off guard. He does cross rather than fight me, but somebody trying to set up a gate in the doorway does manage to stand still long enough to get killed, and as I'm enjoying that and thinking about pushing forward, there's actually a light assault in the container behind me. I push back onto point, deny a res, pick up a guy who is rotating through the point, and then I realize there's significantly less pressure on this point than I thought. I managed to get away with murder by just standing in the wide open, and then I pick off a medic who's going for the res, and the fight's kind of over. I rotate to the Awful Pit, and I find the most amazing spawn, and wind up rotating from there to the Awful Pit. I take my ride to point, and wind up having an encounter with a VS who uses me to uninstall himself. I drive to point, and there's actually nobody there, and as I'm trying to push past it, I pick up a few people who are pushing back to point, but they're a very slow trickle of blue in, so there's not a whole lot of pressure or risk or threat. Basically just to walk around and clean up. But while I'm doing this, that self-uninstaller messages me wondering why I was riding myself to point, rather than why he was jumping under my wheels.
This guy asked me why I'm driving out of spawn. I told him I'm lazy. I asked him why he's using me for assisted suicide. Dot/suicide works just as well.
He didn't find that nearly as funny as I did, and actually seemed to be under the impression that I had done it intentionally, and actually got quite upset about it. Not wanting to ruin the recording that I knew I was running, I wound up having to ignore him. But I moved over to Thatcher Air Station, where there was actually a quite decent fight, and after eating shit on A point, I respawn, and I'm actually able to assist in the push onto B point. I hug the wall close to make a more aggressive push, same with the server here, but we wind up clearing out both those guys before I can really get to them. I come outside to see if there's anybody else. I manage to pick up one outside the door, and as I'm coming back inside, there's an infiltrator that I'm able to clear out, and as I resecure the point, I see a max outside. I go to deal with the max, and as I do, there's actually a drop that I'm completely unaware of, and a large push comes from the other side of the point, and I'm completely out of position to defend this correctly. I misread the situation, and I think it's just a few people trickling in, so I have my commissioner out, ready to just clean up the two of them, and then all of them crash through, and I have no way to really defend myself, even if I were to hit all those shots, which I wasn't going to. There were a bunch of light assaults or some people down on one of the towers below us, and as I was investigating, we got flanked. I managed to clear that guy up, and then the fight returned to point B. Not wanting to push through that giant choke at the bottom, I actually go around and up over the cliffs, which gives me a good position on a handful of infantry that are also doing the same thing of trying to play the sides. The general plan here is to peek over the rocks, get a kill or two, apply some pressure, and as soon as I take damage, to retreat because I have nobody here that can pick me up, and this is actually quite a good position. I actually begin to draw some fire from one of the far towers, so I duck down behind the rocks and try to rotate around a little bit to where I can get a better angle on the people that I was fighting. I managed to fall down right in front of somebody and die for free, but thankfully this champion of a medic picks me up. Because I've cleared off the cliffs, I jump down and I start taking a longer angle to try to loosen up and get rid of some of these people on the point. I'm in a very good position to do so when suddenly airhammer. Running back, my team already has the point, and I'm actually going to push up thinking that these guys on the minimap are around the corner when I suddenly realize they're actually all above me. I do what I can to clear those out and secure the point, but it continues raining men, and no sooner do I finally deal with that situation than does the emergency response system let me know that there is terrible weather inbound. As any upstanding citizen would, I make my way to shelter in a calm and orderly fashion. Give me a side, give me a side, give me a side, give me a side! I survive the bad weather and take a look outside to see that there's another max already. I go to reload my rocket, and as I rotate back around to throw said rocket at said max, there's not a max in the doorway, and I die for free because I've made a terrible mistake. That fight kind of clears itself up after the OS, and I head back off to Ixatab. I've barely left spawn, and I already see some red pressure. I'm able to clear up this first guy, but I round the corner, and I am just completely unprepared for this dude to be where he's at. I'm unable to save my teammate, and I have to do a quick shuffle around as I try to locate this goddamn light assault. I managed to trade him out, but I die to somebody else, and that's probably for the best because I deserve it after letting my teammate down. We lose that compound, and I wind up joining combat into Thatcher Air Station. It puts me in a relatively awkward position, and I take a fight with somebody way too far away to actually follow it up, and I just miss the shots that actually would have let me clean that guy out. I pick up his teammate, and I position to try to go hunt down this light assault, but while I'm doing so, somebody walks out of spawn, I have absolutely no cover, and I pretty much die for free just because I'm in a terrible spot that I didn't need to be in. There was no hard spawn to take me back to Thatcher, so I wind up taking a Sunderer to Eastern Substation, and I show up in time to realize that shit is hitting the fan. I clear out the guys across me as best I can, and then I peek close on the corner. There is actually somebody there that I wind up killing. A resonade goes off. I know it hits this dude around the corner, but there's too many people in front of me to deal with. Thankfully, he doesn't push me. I run out of ammo on those guys at far, pull out my commissioner to swing the close guy before he gets any ideas, successfully pick him up, but there's too many people from too many angles, and I can't do anything about it. There's not a whole lot of other fights going on, so I take continual reses at this point and try to make fights where I can, trying to clear out what I can and allow this to keep going, but it seems very evident shortly thereafter that there's not anything else I can do. So I wind up heading back to the ziggurat where there seems to be another large retake operation happening, so I push up and try to help clear them out. Initially, I take a longer angle to isolate the fight and not expose myself to a bunch of people, but as Purple begins to push into the building, I push in with them to help them with the breach. We manage to push onto point and get a nice clean, so I push outside thinking this fight is very over, only to realize I fucked up massively. There's a res combined with a drop behind me, and while these blocks do provide good cover, it is a wide open field from here back to the point, so I try to hold this position and clear out what I can, because I don't think I will survive the run. I stick close to the boxes as I can to make sure there's the tightest angle and the least amount of people from the staircase will see me, but when I gas up my gun while under pressure, I try to rotate, panic, sizz a bunch of people, and die. But I've got to begin bringing this video to a close, where we end this video with 114 kills in 48 minutes. This video in particular had a relatively rough start to the session, where I was trading a lot of things 1-for-1 and making a lot of bad plays, but hopefully this is also a way to highlight that if you keep your head down and keep to the fundamentals, that things can work out in your favor. Fight selection also can have a big impact on how your session goes, but there's only so much that you can actually do yourself, and you gotta make do with the fights that you get. A lot of my mistakes in this session were simply not rotating off when I've taken fights that I'm not going to win, and instead just trying to sheer willpower my way through them. There's absolutely more mistakes that I could have highlighted, but I didn't really have the time to. Hopefully you've seen some of my other videos and can apply some of those mistakes that I've made there to see what mistakes I've made here and make better decisions for yourself. But, as always, let me know what you do like, let me know what you don't like, let me know what you think so I can improve these videos going forward. Thank you guys for your continued support, and I'll see you next time.